My name is Isabel. I have one sister who is 3 years older than I am. Ever since we were young, my sister has been self-centered. She would treat even my belongings as if they were her own. During what should have been enjoyable family trips, she mostly complained. We certainly couldn't be described as close sisters. My parents tried to make things as good as possible, but my sister's selfishness remained unchanged. My parents wondered why there was such a difference between the two of us, even though we had the same parents and lived in the same environment. But my sister never changed. Years later, when my sister was in college and I was in high school, she was still causing a ruckus, stealing my boyfriends and spending my tuition money, and almost insulating us. However, she introduced her fiancé. My parents were worried that no one would take my sister, so they were relieved to hear that she was getting married after college. Of course, I was also very much in favor, thinking that my sister would be able to settle down if she got married. Most of all, I was very happy that my sister would be getting married and moving away from home. The man who would become my brother-in-law seemed serious and made a very good impression on me. A few years after my older sister had left, hoping that her selfishness would be corrected at least a little, I became a working adult and got married. When my husband and I went to my parents' house to my marriage, I told him, "I actually have an older sister, but we don't get along well but even your sister-in-law has a family, doesn't she? You just have to be an adult and socialize with people." "It would be nice if that could happen," we said in our conversation. When we arrived at our parents' house, my sister and her husband were already there.
Welcome home.
Carl, thank you for coming. I always appreciate how well you get along with my daughter.
Welcome home. What? Isn't your boyfriend kind of creepy?
Selena, what are you talking about? You're being rude.
I'm just telling you the truth.
As I expected, my sister was still the same. Nothing had changed at all, and I felt disheartened. Maybe I shouldn't have introduced my husband to my family as I looked over at him. He seemed to have his own thoughts, giving me an understanding glance that said, "I see what you mean." After introducing himself and receiving approval for our marriage, we're having a good time when suddenly my sister, perhaps annoyed she wasn't the center of attention, blurted out, "Hey, by the way, I'm pregnant." My parents and I were taken aback by the abruptness of her announcement, but she looked smug. Her husband, visibly unsettled, said, "You said you'd announce it when it calms down. You should have done the same at my parents' too. But we have the wedding coming up, and I thought it was the right time." Maybe, but not right now. Given the flow of the conversation and the future plans for the wedding, this wasn't the right moment for such news. In other words, my self-centered older sister needed to be the center of attention.
You could have told us when you called about coming home the other day.
Well, I thought it would be better to tell once things settled down.
But Isabel is here to discuss marriage right now. Isn't it better if you tell us after she leaves?
With such persuasion from their parents, my sister became grumpy, but the conversation continued.
I'm 2 months pregnant now.
I only found out about the pregnancy recently.
My brother-in-law, now visibly flustered, was murmuring something. Hearing his words, my mother put her hand on her forehead and sighed. "Oh, you haven't even gotten your maternity handbook yet." Seeing this, my older sister exclaimed, "What do you mean by that? Don't you want me to have a baby?"
Of course it's a joyous occasion, but you haven't even told your husband's family yet, right?
We plan to tell them after the thing settles over there.
I couldn't understand why she was so angry.
Look, we're truly happy to hear about your pregnancy, so you don't need to announce it today.
Stop it. I bet none of you are happy that I'm pregnant. How cruel not to celebrate with me.
She was like the tragic heroine, bursting into tears. The atmosphere at home wasn't fitting for announcing a marriage anymore. Maybe we should leave now.
Yes, I'm sorry about this.
After all, I've announced my pregnancy, so give me a baby gift.
Baby gifts are given after birth. But first, there's the wedding gift. But we don't need gifts, so let's just call it even.
What? Just give me the baby gift.
I fled my parents' house with my husband. Behind me, my father was restraining my rampaging sister. Through all this, my brother-in-law just looked overwhelmed. He only seemed reliable during the marriage proposal. My sister definitely wears the pants in their relationship. On our way home, I apologized to my husband. I'm so sorry for involving you in all this.
It's not your fault, Isabel. But your sister, she's quite something. I've never met someone like that before.
She's always been selfish. I began to share a story from my past with my husband. When I was in middle school, I got a necklace as a birthday gift from my grandparents. I was so thrilled that I looked at it every night and carefully stored it in its box. One day, my sister sneaked into my room and stole it. I noticed the necklace was missing that night, then I searched everywhere. But when I couldn't find it, I cried to my parents. Then, my sister returned from an outing.
You're crying? That's laughable.
Did you take my necklace?
Your necklace? I took it because it's mine now.
What? My necklace was around her neck, and she flaunted it with a jangling sound. I got angry and said, "Hey, give it back. That necklace was a gift from your grandfather."
It's fine. It looks way better on me anyhow. You don't need it.
But she ignored me and continued to claim it as her own until our angry parents finally intervened and took it back. When my husband heard this, he looked concerned.
If we have a wedding, we'd have to invite your sister. Are you okay with that?
As he said, if we had a wedding, my sister would be there. I had decided against a wedding. But thanks to Carl's suggestion, we decided to have a small ceremony abroad. Even then, I have no idea where they heard about it, but she contacted me and said,
It's not fair that you're going abroad without me.
It's for our wedding ceremony honeymoon vacation. It's not unfair.
I've never been abroad.
Why don't you guys go yourselves?
I don't have any money, so take us. Invite us to the wedding for free. And get my dress ready for me, and have our wedding pictures taken.
Hearing all this gave me a headache and I hung up the phone. Then, on the day of the trip, I was relieved because I'd not told her anything about the departure date or any schedule. But somehow my older sister was there at the airport. What are you doing?
Well, take me with you.
My sister was very excited to have her husband carry her suitcase and go with her, even though she was very pregnant and close to her due date. Sorry, I can't do that.
Hurry up and go get the tickets.
Even if you have a ticket, you're pregnant, aren't you? You can't take a long plane ride, and there are no hotels available.
Go make the reservations. I'll call it my baby gift.
This trip cost close to $1 million. There's no way this is your baby gift. We're going now. We were not prepared for this, but rather wanted to splurge on our honeymoon together. And since we had booked in premium class, we quickly headed for the lounge. My sister followed us into the lounge, but I think she was stopped by the security guard at the entrance, and I heard some shouting. But I felt relieved when I thought she could no longer follow us. After a while, a staff member with a troubled look on his face said,
The person earlier is saying that she is going to be accompanying you and wants to be let in. However, she doesn't have a ticket. Is it okay with you to her board?
He asked in as if he needed to confirm this with me. Although they were, for all intents and purposes, unwanted guests. I'm sorry, but they aren't with me. I'm having trouble with the persistent pestering. Sorry. The staff member replied.
Yes, we will take care of it. So please relax and enjoy your stay.
He bowed and left. I'm sorry for everything that happened before the wedding.
It's all right. But I'm wondering where they got the information.
That's right. I thought I had not told my sister at all. But we didn't know how to confirm it, so we went to the overseas wedding. During the overseas wedding ceremony, it was calm and uneventful, and it turned out to be a good ceremony. A few years after this happened, my mother had just passed away and my father was left behind. My father was almost ready to retire when he had an accident and I had to take care of him. He was in such a bad condition that he was in a vegetative state and was bedridden at home. When the hospital called to tell us that my father was alive, my older sister, as if the situation had nothing to do with her, said,
Then there is no problem. If I can take a day off, I'll take it.
What? We don't even know when his condition might worsen. What are you talking about? My sister said to me angrily, You've always been a good girl. And I'm sure your father is fine with you being there. I don't have time to deal with this. As usual, she stubbornly refused to come because she didn't feel like it. After a few days, my sister's husband must have felt that it was not a good idea to leave her like this, so he dragged her to help. As you can see, father is bedridden and needs care.
I can't take care of him. It's so dirty.
Isn't rude cruel to say toward your father?
You should be the one taking care of him. Besides, I have a husband.
Oh, I can't take care of him either.
Of course, I'll take care of him. But it's not nice to talk like that, and you should at least be worried him. I am a housewife, I don't work, and I live close to here. Of course I was going to take care of him. But I got angry the cruel remarks that I heard and I ended up speaking out of turn.
Well, he's not conscious, right?
He's conscious, but he can't talk and he's bedridden.
If that's the case, I shouldn't have come. It's so boring. I'll come when we talk about my inheritance.
Isn't that an awful thing to say? He's not dead yet.
I don't know about being conscious and bedridden, but he can't hear, right?
My father, who was supposed to be in a vegetative state, heard these words and suddenly said,
You've always been like this. You should be ashamed if even just a little.
He said in a voice so loud that it was unthinkable for him to be in a vegetative state.
What?
Dad, keep your voice down. My sister and I were astonished. The doctors had told us that his condition was very bad and that he would never recover. But he suddenly started to speak, although his tongue was not rolling properly. My father said in an angry tone,
I can hear just fine, and it's clear that you won't change even if your father is in such a dire condition. I'm not giving you any of my inheritance, not even a single dollar.
Huh? No way. I'm your daughter.
Isabel is my daughter. You have always been selfish. And no matter how much I tried to fix you, it didn't work. I expected some change in you when I got into such a dangerous situation. But I can't stand it anymore. I'm cutting ties. Don't ever come here again.
My father stared at my older sister, although he was still bedridden. I was surprised as our father started coughing due to having to raise his voice. I rubbed his body and said, Don't strain yourself, father. My older sister didn't seem to like this at all.
Look, you're always like this. You're acting like a good girl, so I'm the bad guy.
What are you talking about? Get out of here.
My brother-in-law quickly restrained my older sister, who looked like she was going to lose control, and took her out of the house. Then I called the hospital. The doctor was very surprised to hear about my father's condition. After the examination, the doctor said it's rare for the condition to suddenly improve. But it is a miracle that it gets so much better, he said. We were overjoyed when we heard that if he completes rehabilitation, there might be a chance he'll able to stand up again. After that, my father went to the hospital for rehabilitation. His condition gradually improved. One day, my father called my sister and her husband over to the house.
Hey, are you okay, Dad? You're sitting up.
My sister tried to enter the room when my dad shouted, "Don't come in any further. You're filthy."
Isn't that a cruel thing to say? You call me here, and now I can't even enter the house? To begin with, this is our family home. It's my house, you know.
This isn't your house. Don't get it twisted. Besides, our business for today ends there. Sign this.
With that, my father handed my sister the document for the division of assets before death. It said that my sister would receive $700 and the rest would be given to my husband and me. In fact, my parents had a house, some cash, and a small inheritance. Our parents had met because they worked for the same company. They fell in love and got married. It was a common thing at the time. But it seems our father had bought stock from using salary deductions. It was a small company, but when father and others joined, it rapidly started to grow. Now, the stock price had shot up significantly. Naturally, my sister knew about this. Therefore, I could see that my sister was planning to get my parents' shares. My father knew this, so after his recovery, he contacted a tax accountant and other related parties, and told them that he did not want to give my sister a single penny when he inherited the estate. I was told that under American law, it's difficult to completely sever ties. It was settled that assets would be distributed while he was alive, and the remainder would go entirely to me.
I only get $700, and all the rest goes to Isabel. That's terrible and unfair.
Dad, that's harsh. Isn't Selena the same as Isabel? They're both your daughters, right?
Enough. I remember what you all said when I was bedridden. If you don't sign, I won't even give you $700. Just leave.
My sister, glaring at me with veins bulging in anger, spat out the following words.
Lucky you. You're rich, aren't you?
I've always just done ordinary things. It's just that you couldn't tolerate anything, right? If you had acted normally, things wouldn't have ended up this way. I responded calmly, looking into my sister's eyes. I knew why my sister was being so persistent. Her husband didn't earn much. They couldn't even afford a home, let alone take out a loan. They were in dire financial straits. I was aware of her schemes to get an inheritance. When she learned that our father, who had been rushed to the hospital, was still alive, she let out a voice that sounded somewhat disappointed. Recognizing this, I didn't stop my father from making his decision this time.
Come on, Dad. I haven't bought a house. I even have a daughter. Don't you feel sorry for your granddaughter?
You should work hard and buy it yourself. After all, Isabel bought hers.
You probably paid for it.
He didn't buy it. We worked hard and bought it ourselves.
That's not fair.
Is it really unfair? We shouldn't be criticized for a home we purchased with our hard-earned money. Since my single days, I used my savings to invest in stocks on my father's advice. After getting married, I managed funds and bought a home without any assistance. Though I sought financial advice from my father, I never asked for monetary help.
Enough. If you don't want to sign, just leave.
Hey, just sign it.
Forget it. I won't come back to this house ever again.
That would be helpful. Now, sign it.
Roughly taking the pen, my sister signed the document and left, hurling the papers as she went. Turning to me, my father apologized. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? It's not your fault.
With the way your sister has been, it must have been tough for you. And from now on, you also have to take care of me.
It's okay. Just focus on your rehabilitation. Relieved, my father thanked me. Life after that incident has been peaceful. I took care of my father while being blessed with my first child. To avoid burdening me further, my father has become even more committed to his rehabilitation. While there may still be occasional disturbances in the future, for now, our days seem to